welcome to my channel. If you like what I do, hit the old like and please subscribe. You can reach me at jdwatchservice@gmail.com for any potential work you want me to do. Here on the bench I have a Hamilton pocket watch. It's a size 16 pocket watch. If you're into pocket watches, you'll know what I'm talking about. The face is a little cracked here, but it's vintage and it's been around for a long time. It is curious how a face on a pocket watch does get cracked if it's just simply sitting in the case, and there really is no stress on the face. So in this case, it's ticking away, but I just moved the hour hand back because the hour hand was touching the second hand. It interfered with it, which means the second hand was not properly aligned on the pivot for the fourth wheel, because that's where that second hand is. So if I just take this thing apart quickly and have a look at it, also you'll notice that in the setting position, if this were 12 o'clock, somebody screwed that up, or I think that when it went around, the hour hand snagged it and the minute hand just kept going a little bit longer, which caused it to be off kilter, as they say, off kilter. So I'm going to strip this watch down today, and we're going to have a look at its makeup. And as you can see, it's the good news is it is ticking. The bad news is it looks like it's got about a 90-degree swing on it, maybe 180, but not much more. That means it does work. The mainspring's good on it. And this watch is from the 30s. It's adjusted. It doesn't say how many positions it's adjusted. Usually if it's adjusted and doesn't say how many positions, it's usually 3 positions, and likely not adjusted for temperature or isochronism, right? And isochronism is the dual metals on the balance that cause it to balance out for heat and cold, so you don't get the expansion and contraction. Isochronism. Is that right? Maybe it isn't. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, argue with myself. Hamilton Watch Company, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, 17 jewels. So these are the jewels. Let me just see if I can zoom in a little bit here. There's the jewels, and as you can see, let me get my favorite pointer, which is my tweezers, and dislodge them from my little watch carrying thing. So there's the balance there. So we got the balance rotating, which is very good. We've got the jewels, so that's the center wheel, which is considered the second wheel because the mainspring wheel is under here, which is the ratchet wheel for the mainspring, and that's the first wheel, second wheel. The third wheel is here. It's an intermediate wheel that transfers power to the fourth wheel, and the fourth wheel is in fact where the second hand is attached on the other side of the watch. Fifth wheel is the escapement ticking away there, and that escapement is working on the 2 pallet stones for the pallet fork that's underneath this plate here, or bridge here. And then the and of course you got the balance here, and you've got the balance staff is effectively the balance is staked onto the balance staff, and you regulate this watch turning this here, the screw. Let me see if I can point to this. You turn the screw right here to regulate the watch, which moves this hand left or right. If you're moving it right, it's going faster. And if you look at what happens to this hand, way over right there, there are 2 little pins that face downward that grab the hairspring on both sides, and they're just sort of, the hairspring's riding between the these little tiny hands that go straight down. And when you make it go fast, this just rides down further, which effectively shortens the hairspring. So because in fact these 2 pins are touching that hairspring momentarily, which shorten its relative size, which make it run faster if it's shorter. If you go the other way, which means you've taken this and pushed it this way, it's running longer, so the hairspring, more of the hairspring is in play here. So that's those 2 little pins that go down. The hairspring goes between them, like I said, and it just goes over this way a bit more, making that hairspring a little longer. So that's a layman way of explaining how that works. So there we go. So that's the watch. It's actually running, which I'm impressed with. I didn't think it was running. And the first thing I would do is take the power off this watch so I can start the disassembly. So to relieve the power on this, I got to grab my favorite tool, which is a Bergeron tool. So this is a stick I use for holding back the click spring. Now to take power off the watch, all I do is grab the crown like this, and I wind it just a bit like this, and as you can see, that click spring kind of moves out of the way, and then I'm able to ride the crown in my fingertips back to remove power off the watch. Now this thing looks like it was wound up pretty tight, which is fine. Just don't overwind the watch. So when you have an old vintage pocket watch and you wind it up completely, if you wind it until you can't wind it anymore, what you end up is with the mainspring attached to the wall of the barrel, of the mainspring barrel, and then a sharp angle between that, where that is, and the mainspring nicely coiled around the arbor on the barrel. There's a chance you could snap off the hook that is used to hold the mainspring onto that barrel. So there's no real need to wind the hell out of this thing. So just wind it up. I usually say 20 times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that kind of thing, until you get some good power on it. Then do it like in the morning, and then check it the next morning to see if it's still running. If it's not running, just do a few more turns on the watch, and then you're good to go. As you can see, this is a 10-karat rolled gold plate Illinois watch company, or watch case company. So this is the back of the case where they have that marking, and as you can also see, it's been repaired or serviced a few times, because these are the service marks over here. There's one service mark there, another one right there. I'm kind of pointing backwards here, and another one right here. So, and then another one right here. So you've got about 4 or 5 services on this watch to date, and then probably it was not. No, there's a couple on the top I can see as well, right on the top of the watch up here, and probably then it was not used for many years. Maybe for the first 10 or 15 years there was a lot of service on this watch, and then the owner just put it in a drawer and replaced it with a wristwatch, and it was never serviced again. So it's been sitting there for years, kind of in an unserviced state. So, which is not good for any watch. It just tends to just get gummed up and it needs cleaning. Also, the back case here, it looks like it's got a scratch across the back case. I can work that out, but if I try to work that scratch out, there's a chance I'll work out the engraving here on the back. And these watches, the engraving on the watches were done. As you can see, there's a little window right there. See if I can get this without an angle. And this was so someone could get their initials engraved on the watch, right? I haven't seen a lot of watches with the initials engraved on the back. So people would buy them, but typically not engrave their initials on them. So that space was left for the engraving the initials, but was very rarely used. What's really weird or nice about this case is also these little notches here that around the case give it a little bit of a design and a little style, I guess. And then inside here, there's a little micro knurling in there, which is not a clean or clear finish. It's kind of knurling. So these offset little lines around the case are kind of neat. And if you look at the front of the watch here, the face of the watch, you get the exact same thing on this case. So this is a kind of a unique design for a case. I don't think I've ever seen a watch case that looks like this. In fact, if I grab another watch here that I actually have to fix, the sad part about this watch is I dropped it and it cracked the crystal, so I've got to replace the crystal on it, but it's my watch, so not too sad about it. But I dropped it from waist height onto a hard floor, and I was expecting the balance to be broken on this or something, but as you can see, the thing is still ticking. I was impressed. So I may have to look at that because there may be a little bit of damage, but it's my watch. I'm not too concerned about it. I had it on a tray with some other stuff and didn't realize it was there, and then tipped the tray a bit and it dropped. So anyway, you don't see that kind of knurling on this watch. I've got another one here. This is an old size. I've shown this one before, an American Waltham watch company with a really nice lid on it. And this is a size 18, so it's a pretty big watch, and it's also lever set. You pull the lever out like that, and then you can set the watch like this. What time is it right now? It's like Time check, it's just 11:23 right now, so 11:23, is that right? Yeah, 11:23. I went past the time check. So 11:23-ish, and then you push that back in like that, and then you wind it. I typically go like this when I wind a watch, 1, 2, 3. Ride it back a bit, just puts everything in good position again. And that's this watch here, but if you look at this, the uniqueness about this is the lid going out. And then there's a design around here which is gorgeous on this watch, right? This is size 18 Waltham. And the movement has a dust case as well. Can I open this up without using my... I got long fingernails, thumbnails on this hand, which come in handy for watchmaking. But look at that baby tick. So this is running very well. I did repair this. It's a W.H. Elliott, or W.M. Elliott? WHWM, something, Elliott pocket watch, and it's running exceptionally well. So I actually purchased this watch from a gentleman, and it was not working. It was in dire straits, and I got it going again nicely. So that's there, and as I showed you just a few seconds ago, that's the space on the back of this watch where someone would write their initials. So this watch is late 1800s. I think it's 1890. This watch, and it's a size 18. It's got a really nice bail on it. I like this nice round bail it has. I do have a bailing tool that I've used to actually reattach a bail or make one. I made a bail once for a stainless steel watch out of a coat hanger wire, which seemed to be the perfect consistency of metal to make a bail. Anyway, so these, you don't see this design I have on this pocket watch here with this funky knurling here, or this, whatever you want to call this. It reminds me of the Roman Empire, right? So this kind of has the Roman Empire feel to it. So, but you don't see this on any other pocket watch. So this is a very nice medium-end Hamilton, I think, and it's not a high-end Hamilton, but Hamiltons are generally very good. So that's that. So I'm going to be taking this thing apart. Just a little discussion on knurling as I go forward. Here we got a bit of a close-up view of this pocket watch. There it is there. It's a live close-up view. So I've decided to add a handheld camera into these videos so you guys can see some stuff pretty close up, and it doesn't take me much effort to actually take this handheld camera I have and then zoom in on something where I want to show some detail. So you can actually see the jewels and the pivots inside there on this watch. Often I have to change a jewel or change a jewel setting. In this case it looks like they're good, but I'll be looking at under the microscope, look at each one of these jewels. This one here has a raised jewel setting. So right here, that's a raised jewel setting. I have another video where I make a setting like this, and this is only held in by 2 screws. You often see the higher end watches have 3 screws in the jewel setting, holding that center jewel in, and the removal of that jewel sometimes ruins the burnishing on the other side, the opposite side of the setting, and you have to make a new setting. There's no other opportunity to fix it. You just end up making a new setting. So here I've got to get the hands off the watch, so I'm not going to pick a screwdriver out, but I think I'll pick one out now just to remove the screws from the movement holder, so I just be able to take that and remove that later. So I just grab a screwdriver from my screwdriver set. And over here I have a series of hand removers. So usually I use the wider ones because they're easier on the actual watch face. So this is one of the wider ones here. I dumped a bunch of them in here, so I'll have to just dive in there and find the other one. It's sort of tucked in there and behind, so I can just remove or move some of this stuff out of the way and get back there and grab that other oh, let me see. There we go. It's live action like those CSI movies, right? So there we go. Grab that from the, look at that, nice and shiny. So what I'll do now is I'll use this to remove the hands from the face of the watch, right? So and I can do that. I'll just put the case on top lightly like this and spin this around, because what I need to do now is take off the crystal to be able to do this properly, right? So that's the next step in the process. So I'll just unscrew that crystal from the watch, and then I'll have access to the hands, but I want the hands to be set at 12 o'clock. Let me remove the, or screw this on lightly in the back, the case back on lightly. I don't really need to screw this back on, but what I do want to do is remove the face of this watch, right? So there's the bezel and the crystal, right? So I'm removing this. I guess that's really not called the face, but the bezel and the crystal. This looks like a plastic crystal, which is pretty common in these pocket watches. And then the hands, I pull the crown out like that to set the hands. One curious thing about this watch is I think this bail here for this watch was made by somebody. I don't think this is the original bail for the watch. So I may find a different bail and then rebail it, which means I have to spread this bail out and then get another one to put it in properly, because it kind of looks a little bit cheap, which it shouldn't look. So there we go. So first thing is to protect the face of this watch. I need to get a watch protecting device, a WPD. And to protect the face of the watch, I have this little watch protecting device. I'm just going to put this in like this so I can remove these two hands at the same time. And here's my current setup in the mat. So I've got the screwdriver there. I've got the hand removers kind of off on both sides, and I keep that crystal out of the way. And I got my pair of tweezers on the side here for taking the hands and putting them aside. Now for the hand removers, I've got, as you say, as I said before, they're wide hand removers. I don't need to go in like this to remove them, although in this case I can, because there's a slot on the side, but I can take them from the edge like this, which gives me a very good grip on these hands, and just rise it up like that. Now that took absolutely zero stress on the face of the watch by doing it this way. And then take the hands one at a time. And what I do is I actually put the hands inside the crystal like this so I know where they are, like that. And then I put that aside, and I can take this paper fork tongue and move it over. I find it very hard to use this to remove the center wheel, so often what I'll do in here is just grab a couple of screwdrivers and take them from the side and just twist them. So I can go underneath like that, and then just twist up, and that's usually enough force to remove that second hand from the pivot. So there it is there. Second hand is removed from the pivot and just laying there. So let's get a close-up on that pivot. So there's the close-up on the pivot, and as you can see, the pivot is right here. That's the pivot, and that's the second hand here with the pipe that goes over the pivot. So you just have to move that out of the way, but that's the pivot and the pipe. The pivot and the pipe. There we go. So now I'll grab that second hand with my tweezers and move that out of the way too. I'll grab that by the pipe so I don't damage the hand itself. So now I've got the hands removed, which is the first thing you need to do to service that watch. So get those hands out of the way, and then flip the watch around. And it's important to keep your hands away from a few things. So that pivot for the fourth wheel pivot is something you got to be aware of all the time when you're doing servicing on a watch. As well, when you take the balance out, and the balance cock is here on top, you just be aware of where that balance is in the hairspring at all times, because you can foul those up pretty easily. So now I'm going to get a nice cushion here that'll help me put this down without disturbing any of this section here. So I got to go into my cushion compartment. So I'm going to pull out my Myers number 58 movement holder first, right out of my little compartment or drawers, and then I'm going to go and search for my cushion, which I think is right there. There it is. So the cushion, you're seeing the green screen in the back, by the way, I use for my videos. So there's a Bergeron cushion. This is a gel-filled cushion, so it's perfect for this. I stay away from my torch here because I'll end up burning myself. So I just placed the watch here, movement, on top of that cushion now, so it's all ready for some repair. And just a quick watch check. So this is not a Rolex, this is a Folex. So this is the Apple Ultra Titanium watch on this hand. And on the other hand, what I have is the Bulova Marine Star, which is a gorgeous watch. And I've got a mesh bracelet on there, and I did make a video on how to cut that bracelet to make it work perfectly. So, and I am wearing gloves, with you watchmakers out there would be very proud of me right now. All right, back to a stable camera. So what I have to do now is remove the screws from this. So to do that, I actually take off one of my gloves because I'm not going to touch the watch with this hand here. Again, I've got long fingernails for guitar playing, so I apologize for that, but it really helps me with plucking those strings. So too bad. So there we go. So let me just remove these screws again, straight down. Remove the screws nice and carefully. When you hear them tick, hear a click on this, that means the screw is past the thread. This one's clicking rather early, so I'm not sure whether this is going to come up or not. I think I may have to use Rodico to pluck it out, which is okay. Usually the screws are a little bit deeper in there and you don't have to do something like this, but I should be able to use Rodico. When I put the Rodico down, I can rotate it so that the threads aren't touching, right? And then pull the Rodico straight up. Hopefully this is going to work, because if it doesn't, it makes me look like a fool. The other thing I can do is just tip the watch the other way, and yeah, the Rodico is not sticking to this. Let me just back it off a little more here. And then try it again. And if it doesn't stick, I'll just... it doesn't want to come up. It's stubborn. So I can tip this just a bit, like that. And then take my screwdriver, take a smaller screwdriver in here, and just work that screw out with the smaller screwdriver, because that should come out without a problem. It's a little bit stuck in there, but usually gravity is my friend, so I'm hoping today gravity is my friend as well. Let me rotate this again, and tick it. Tick, come on out. No, today gravity is not my friend. Yeah, the screw seems to be stuck in there a little bit. I may have to go and get in closer and get angry at it. So it looks like this screw holds the movement in the case here, which are called case screws. These two look different. So I imagine one of the case screws was removed. Now you see this case screw goes up the right height, so this is a lot higher, and I can just grab this and pull it out. The other case screw was just barely touching, right? So it wasn't of any use from that perspective. Now I might be able to still drop the movement out by loosening the case screw and allowing gravity to take the movement forward. So I want to see what happens here. I still have to pull the crown back though and put it in the setting position. So it is now, I believe, is in the winding or the setting. Yeah, it's in the winding position. So if I pull this back, let me grab this and figure out where I am here. No, that's proper. So that's in the setting position right now. And this ridiculous little screw is causing me problems. So it's in pocket watches, especially 100-year-old anything. These things have got a personality, right? So this should come out straight down. See how that just twisted there? So I just use the force of the movement to help me with the screw here, because I should be able to reel this back. There we go. So I knew that would come out, and then I'll just deal with this screw later. I may replace it. Yeah, I might replace this because it's being a PIA, as they call it. Look at the size of that screw. So something's absolutely wrong, because that is not a case screw. Somebody just threw a screw in there. So again, a great watchmaker. And if you look at the size of the two screws on the mat, there's one screw, there's the other. Somebody was full of poo-poo when they put that screw in. So they were able to get away with it because the screw was so close to the to where the stem goes in, right? So that's why. But I'll put the two screws also in on the crystal here very carefully. We don't want to scratch the crystal. Not good. So what I want to get ready now is I need my movement holder to get, so that I can get my my actual movement holder out here. Let me see, which one am I going to use? I think we need some action. So what I have here is my Dunker tank movement holder, which I really like, and I've got my movement holder that just, this is the balance tack, it's called. And so I sit the balance cock on here, and then the balance just rests on here. So I think I'll use this one for now. because I'm not cleaning the balance at this moment. So I'll just use this one. I've got some other movement holders, like this is the one I use for the 7750, and I've got another movement holder here, and I've got a jar back here that I use for any cleaning I want to do. And there's a shot of the Hamilton movement sitting on the Bergeron 5395. Basically this is the sponge. It's gelled, so it'll protect your watch face. It'll protect the movement from getting damaged. So the first thing to do here now is to take off. This here is a dust ring or dust protector that's part of this watch. Usually when watches have a dust protector on them, they're fairly high quality. I'll tell you that. So, and you just stick a screwdriver in here and then rotate it ever so slightly. This one is a very narrow dust ring or dust protector. There we go. Just came off like that. And of course there's only one way of putting this thing back on, so you don't have to worry about it, but I'll put that inside here as well. So there you go. Now I've got a few things I'm collecting in here. I could move those to the case back. I don't want to scratch the crystal on it, but this crystal is fairly scratched anyway. So I want to remove the face of the watch here. So this is a ceramic material here, and I want to make sure that that's gone and protected. Typically there's a copper or brass, I think, which is the face, and then this is on top of that. So I can use the screwdriver likely to loosen up these screws. Might be a little small, but you just screw those back, and I want to make sure I put them back in so I don't lose them later on. So I think I need a bigger screwdriver for this, a bigger screwdriver. So my red colored screwdriver and your red colored screwdriver and mine are the exact same size. So you want to put a little bit of pressure on that before you unscrew it, because you don't want to strip the screw. That's not good. And just roll it over, and I can see that there looks like there's a screw missing here, right? Because there would have been a screw in here too. So there's a screw missing. Let me look down that hole. I don't see a screw there. And so if I take my screwdriver and just pry it just a bit, you should be able to pry it off. It looks like this screw is still hanging on for dear life, unless it's just a prying problem. But if I put my screwdriver in here and I pry a bit, there we go. Don't cry over the pry. I use the fat of my fingers to actually keep the face where it's supposed to be while I'm doing this, right? This one here seems to be tight still, so I'm going to back this off just a bit more. So just to make sure it's not grabbing the dial foot. So I did have it put a video online about dial feet soldering. So there we go. So now it's coming off nicely, and I'll just turn this around this way, which is safe as heck. And there's the back. There's the 3 dial feet you have here. And I did have a video on how to solder dial feet because I had to do that job for somebody. And you see it's in very good condition here. The subdial is actually soldered on. It's a separate dial soldered on. But if you look at the top, there's cracks, major cracks on the face. That would lower the value of this watch just a bit. Not significantly, surprisingly enough, but just a bit, right? And what I do is I won't clean this with my Rodico until I have it reinstalled on the movement, so there's some support to it while it's in its place, right? So let's just put this face, I'll just use the case back to hold that face there. So, and then as I strip the watch down, I can take a few components off this watch now before I remove the balance. So I'm looking at the movement here and the action on that movement. So I get my I've got what you call bench keys, right? So I should have a bench key that fits in to here. Let me see if this bench key is the right size. No, too big. This should be the right size here. Let me see. No, that's actually too small, so maybe this was the right. Yeah, there we go. So I look at the action of the motion works here, right, and push down like this, and you can see how this all works, right? There's a large spring here that presses against this little knobby here, and this here moves the. Is it called the crown wheel? or ratchet wheel. I think it's the crown wheel. Back and forth like that to engage and disengage the time setting. So the time setting mode is now. And if I push this in like this, it's in the winding mode. That's the winding mode. And that's actually allowing the small sawtooth teeth here to grab the ratchet wheel there. So I think it's called the ratchet wheel. I gotta look up my books again there. So you see that turning there like that. So that's winding the watch then, because then there's another gear that transfers that to the mainspring. So first thing I want to do, there's a dial washer that's on top here, and just leave that on there, right? And remove the hour wheel just straight up, and then put that on the mat in the front, because this all goes to the washing machine. And then if I can remove my secondary wheel, which is for the minutes, move that away, right? And then I can sometimes just grab the cannon pinion and pull it straight up, which is nice if I can do it. It looks like I can on this watch, right? So I just grip it like this and then pull it straight up. Doesn't look like I can do that, so I have a device to remove that. I'll show you what that looks like in a millisecond as I grab it. It is my Frankenstein cannon pinion remover. So straight out of the movie. So there it is there. And you can see it's got the jaws of death in there. So it's got dual jaws. And so there's two parts of that tool that actually connect to the plate. So you just have to make sure you're not touching anything down here that you want to bend. And you put this directly on top of the gear like this. And it should go right over the top of the gear. You can move it sideways to make sure it's fitting properly. Like that. And I just make sure that that is getting in there nicely. There we go. And then you push down the handle, right? That grabs it like that. So I'm pressing down the handle with my thumb. And then I just press down and it should take that straight up, right? We'll see if it did. There we go. That's straight up. There's the cannon pinion just sitting there. So you just drop this down onto the mat. There we go. So that's how you remove the cannon pinion from one of these watches. So this just ensures that it goes straight up and you don't bend your center wheel pivot here, right? Because that would be a bad day, as they say in watch world. So the last thing I need to do that I'm worried about, or the first thing I need to do that I'm worried about, is remove the balance cock from here. Now if you notice on this watch, this center wheel pivot is sticking way out. So that could in fact puncture the gel pack, so you don't want to use the gel pack for this. So here's where I get out my my Myers number 58 movement holder. So I'm a good boy, so every time I do work I put my screwdrivers back where they belong, and it's all good. So I got a nice little wireless Logi mouse there that my son gave me. He came over and said, "Hey, you need this, Dad." So that's pretty cool. So this is the Myers number 58 movement holder. I keep telling people that it's great. Look at that. To insert movement, press thumb on screw knob A and slide base B to desired position. Remove the movement, place left hand on thumb A, press the fingers, blah, blah. If you don't know how to figure out how to do this, then this thing says it saves 25 to 50% of your time, right, by using this movement holder. That's great advertising. In the front, it calls it the third hand. So if you actually don't have a third hand, this is your third hand, right? So it's a great movement holder. So I think I have a few of these. I live by them. They're so nice, right? So these little jobby do flicky hickeys come out, and you can replace them with different size jobby do flicky hickeys here that are in the movement holder case. So there you go. So that's a Myers number 58 movement holder. So in this case here, I would just press the button in the side here and then move that back to right size it. And then in this case, I'm turning this around, the watch movement around for it. So it's balance cock up and then placing it in the movement holder. Now I don't think I'm using one hand for the camera here, so I've got to squeeze that in a little bit. So I'm very careful with not puncturing this. So if I just press this and move it in, that's probably the simplest thing to do. Or you can actually ride it in, I think, in this. But this is a one-hand job. There we go. Ride it in just a little bit there. And let's see if that actually works with one hand. So take this, flip it around. I know I'm doing dangerous work here, and I would put this movement into the movement holder. So that's in there now, and then I tighten that up, and I can actually just go like this to tighten it up, like that. That tightens it up a bit, and then I have to. I'm my own cameraman right now, so I just will move this gel pack out of the way, and I've got this, and I will tighten this up. This little screw here tightens up the Myers movement holder onto the movement gets tightened up into the watch like that. That's look at live action shots here. Oh my God, look at this. It's like Hollywood all over again, right? So there you go. When you put this in the watch movement in here, see that's in pretty good. You just have to make sure when you squeeze this, make sure that if it's a lever set hand, that you don't have the lever squeezed in there in any manner. So you just want to make sure it's clear of everything when you use this particular device to do anything. So enough of this live action. We're back at the main camera here, which I think is a very good image on the main camera. So what I want to do now is take out the balance cock, and I want to put it onto this device. Now this would be glued down normally, so I could adjust it, and the balance is resting on there, and all's good in love and war, right? So right now it's not glued on because I think I did some work a while back where this thing came off, but it should still work without a problem. So I want to pick the right size screwdriver. Usually the screw here is like a gray screwdriver for this. So I can't remember the sizes of gray. It's probably written on the screwdriver itself. What is the size of a gray? 1.4 it says, or 140. So it's 140 somethings. So there you go. And then I want to get my little famous $1 billion stick here. And what you want to do is just put a little tiny bit of pressure, like I'm talking nothing, on top of this while you unscrew the balance cock. And this prevents it from riding up while you're doing this, which could cause some extra additional stress on the upper balance pivot, right? So you don't want that. So you turn it until you feel a click. There was a click there. And now I want to pull this out but keeping the balance cock in place so I don't ruin anything. And then as you can see on the side here, I have a little piece of Rodico. So I'll put this down on the Rodico and just press it down. That way I don't lose the screw, because if you lose the screw, you're screwed. So when you lift the balance out, what you do is you lift the balance out and you move the balance holder around to marry up with it. Don't move the balance around, because you're going to end up touching something, hitting something, ruining something. So often you have to I take a yellow screwdriver, yellow handle. Again, I won't tell you the size. And there's a groove down here, and I put that in the groove. So Daddy likes his groove. Is that what it's called? So now just rotate that to make sure that the balance cock is in fact loose. It's not, the alignment pegs aren't stuck in there. So you get your screwdriver. If you look at where I am here, I want to get my screwdriver right in this little groove right on the side here, like this, and not touching the balance. So you go in nice and easy. I've seen watchmakers that actually grab the balance and the hairspring and everything. So I don't do that. I do this. So I grab it like this, and then sometimes I have to use another screwdriver to help it, but I just tip it sideways and then take it out. Now you'll notice I'm holding this and I'm not playing any games. I just want to lower this, right? So, and I believe I've got the right distance for the balance cock here. I'm not sure, absolutely sure, but yeah, I do. So I lower that like that. Now the balance cock should fall through the hole in this faux leather that I have on the top, and then I've got it resting here on the balance cock, and now all's good. So I'm no longer worried about putting stress on the hairspring. That's what I want to prevent, is from having that hairspring dangling for too long. And then when I have it on here, I know I'm going to be doing a lot of work before I actually am talking while I'm reaching over to another area of my watchmaking tool stuff. Let's see if I can reach it. I think I'll come back in 1 second. So what I'm going to do now is take a watch movement holder top, and I just put that down on here, and it's really not touching anything. So it's actually touching the very top of the balance tack. So it's not in the way of anything, right? So I'll move the whole unit out of the way and then put this on, because I know that it's probably going to be a day before I reassemble after watching. So I want to make sure that that is well protected. And there we go. It's on the bench. It's behind the back end of the box there, but it's behind my mat. right, and just on the edge there, so it's kind of out of the way. This is a remote control for my KVM switch. Let's move that out of the way, like that, and so I've got this out of the way, and as you can see, I've got the other parts of the watch movement are on the edge of the mat. They're out of my way, out of the elbow way, and as well, I've got the movement now sitting in the Myers number 58 movement holder. Again, apologize for the fingers and thumbs. The thumbnail really helps me with removing watch case stuff very quickly without marring the watch, because the fingernail is like a piece of plastic, and the fingernails here are for playing guitar. Okay, so I don't have long fingernails on the other hand, so that's that. Okay, so now I want to remove the crown wheel and the ratchet wheel, and the mainspring is under here. So when I remove this wheel, I think I can remove this again with a gray screwdriver. So I'm being very specific today, right? But what I want to do is I turn this counterclockwise. So these are always counterclockwise. Put my screwdriver in and hold my finger down on top of the wheel. So I've got a decent grip on it, and then just back it off like that. A lot of times the screws for these are very, very short. This one's not too bad, but the screws are typically very short. And you got to watch when you're reassembling this that you don't turn it too much, that it will snap the screw head off the screw, and then you have a problem with a leftover screw in the watch. So you can remove this top. There's a little top plate on here, I believe. Let me see if there's a plate. Yeah, there it is. You can remove that with Rodico. It's the best way of taking it out. That way you're not scratching that ratchet wheel. Move that out of the way. And then to take the wheel out, you've got the click spring in the way, but you can usually go beside the click spring there and just edge that wheel out. I'm not sure if that's possible today to do that, but you want to pay attention to the teeth, right? In this case here, I'm actually going to move that click spring out of the way and then see if it helps me with removing the wheel. So let me grab that click spring. The good thing here is the balance is not in the way, right? So there you go. And now I should be able to work this out of the way, unless it's trying to be a pain, right? I think it's trying to be a pain. This should come straight up. Let me see, is there anything else I need to do here? Nope. I'm looking at the way that goes over. So this is circular, and then it's got a kind of a ridge here, so it always fits on the same way. So I'm going to go back in here again. I have a needle, so I've also done this to get really imprecise. I took a sewing needle and I sharpened the end of the needle here, and I put it into a vise, right? So, and I've got quite a few vices. Let me show you my collection of vices right now. All right, there you go. That's my collection of vices right here. So I've got a vice problem, I think. So what I did here in this case I had is I made a couple of plates to hold all this. I got scissors in the back and brushes here for cleaning, and then watch removal stuff. And I drilled a bunch of holes here to hold these vices. So I just grab this case, it rotates a bit, and I can grab stuff I need immediately, like hand removers or bench keys or watch hand presses or anything. So, but I put that vise with the needle in there so I can grab it really quickly. So once again, I'm going to try to remove this. I'm going to try to get this click spring out of the way with my probe, and then I'll get my needle in there and see if this helps me at all, because this thing's in there pretty good. I don't want to stress it or anything, but I do need to get this wheel out, because without getting this wheel out, you can't remove that mainspring, right? So I need to play with this. Let me see. I guess I could remove the click spring and then get a screwdriver underneath there, right? It's strange that this does not pop right out. Let me get my smallest screwdriver and see if that helps. And I'm going to use the needle to take the click spring out of the way, and then see if I can get that screwdriver underneath here somehow. Come on, get out. Yeah, that's like it's welded in there or something, right? You don't want to damage the teeth on this wheel, so you got to be very careful you don't do that. But this wheel seems to be in there really good. Not sure what the problem is. I may have to soak it or something to get it out. So let me play with this and come back, because it's in there good. It doesn't want to come straight out, which is what it would normally do. So I'm just going to play with it and get it out. All right, I'm going to try another technique. So watchmaking is all about technique. So if I remove these plate screws, right, let's just back these plate screws off. This one here seems like it's tight for where it is. Yeah, I don't like that at all. So this plate screw is winding back without any threading. So this bothers me because that's another watchmaker just putting a screw in because they think that'll do, right? It's pissing me off that there's watchmakers that do this, right? And then they give it back to the customer and it's working and they're like, yeah, that's great, but it's not, because that screw, I bet you that screw is the wrong screw. It's not threaded properly. I could feel that right away because when I unscrew it, it's not backing out, which means it's stripped. So which means I got to now look at that screw to see if it's a problem. The good thing about this whole effort is that it's my watch. So I'm not too concerned because it is my watch. So I can play with it and not be really worried. So here what I'm going to try to do is raise the plate up, which might raise the wheel up. The ratchet wheel will stay exactly where it is. I could take it out right now just to make life easier. And it might give me access to the back part. Now the ratchet wheel is either righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, or the other way around, right? And it just depends. So if I turn it the wrong way, so there we go. So now it's righty-loosey here. So, and it's all because of the way that spins, and you do not want the wheel spinning and the friction to loosen the top screw. So this one here loosens clockwise, which is opposite. So you don't want to stress counterclockwise and then break the screw off not knowing. So usually you're clockwise for this and not counterclockwise. So this should come straight up again, just like the other one. But again, old and maybe won't do it. So let me see if I can just lift this up. Yeah, I think this will come up. This seems like it's stuck in there nicely. Gotta use Rodico to get it out. No, that ain't working. I'm having fun today, ladies and germs. Lots of fun. The simple stuff's not working today. The hard stuff's probably easy. Yeah, it's loose. Again, I'm having fun getting a wheel out. Now this wheel, you can remove the plate straight up without having to worry about the wheel. So I can punch the wheel out after if I want. Sort of coming semi out, but again, not all the way out. So what I'll do is I'll just wedge the wheel out. Take the plate off. I'll just put the screwdriver in here, and as I rotate that, it should lift. It's lifting now. And right now, everything is lifting. It's like, what the heck is going on here? Everything is lifting, which is really weird. I'm having a look at this because it's going to lift, and I just got to get the center wheel out of the way. The intermediate wheel, so I don't break anything. So let me just lift this up and then rotate it. There we go. So what it did when I was lifting it up, it was also lifting this wheel here, which is an intermediate wheel, and I just made sure there was no stress lifting that. Put that aside, and there's the center wheel, and there's the center wheel pivot, and this is all good too. And now I've got this plate stuck on top with the mainspring here, and I could probably use a punch or something to take that out, right? So it's kind of weird that it would be stuck like that, right? If I just grab my fingernails and grab the mainspring barrel, will that wheel come out? Jesus, that is tight in there. So I'll deal with that after. That's the mainspring and the arbor, and they look like in pretty good condition. But it's odd that this wheel just doesn't want to come out. So let's just move all this out of the way here, and I'm going to attack this wheel sideways, right? All things are good, sideways are good, right? This is also having an issue, right? So if I push it from the bottom, maybe, let me grab my $1 million pokey thing here, Pokemon, and see if I can poke this out. There we go. That's poked out now. Probably all the crud that's in here from years of this watch being not worked. So I'll take a picture of this, then I'll remove it. But I kind of know how this goes back in anyway, so it's not a big deal. There we go. That goes out like that. And now I've got the two plates. Just get those out of the way. And the screw for those, I just want to match up the screws for where the plates are, so when I put the thing back together, I'm not guessing. So when I put it in my wash machine, there's no problem. So I still have this issue of getting this plate off here, but now I've got access from this side, right? And to see if I can get a screwdriver under here and just torque it just a bit. Man, this thing is in there good. There we go. So there's, now it's out, and there we go. And that's the plate, and you can see that if I show you that close up, you can see it's not perfectly round. There's that little straight line down the side, and that ensures it attaches to the mainspring barrel properly. There's the barrel, and I've got to take the crack that barrel lid off it, and that would be on the other side. And there's an opening for the barrel lid, and there's the hook that the spring fits into. And I won't worry about this right now. Sometimes I will leave these components in because I'm worried about them breaking. I'll have to look at the center wheel to see if the jewel is in good condition, and the secondary wheel here. So it's wheel 1, 2, 3. So this is the third wheel, and I'll check the jewels out on that to make sure it's in good condition. No problemo. I've got this. I'm not sure what this device is. This little hammer here that locks in. So it does something, I think. I am not absolutely sure what that is. That's a crazy little hook. So if someone can tell me what that's used for, it's right here, and I can't see a purpose for that. I don't think I've ever seen one of those. So, and here's the click spring here, and this spring is not. Is that for the click spring? Let me see. Yeah, that's the spring for the click spring right down there. That little spring right down there. So I'll move that out of the way. And well, I'm to it and at it and at it and to it, and you got to tune your attitude in, because if you don't get to it, then you'll never get at it. And if you don't get to it, you'll get at it again. If you don't get to it, you'll get at it again. So just pop the barrel like that. I always take a photo of this, and the reason I do that is that when I put this back, I want to make sure that I'm winding it in the proper direction. So I'll get my phone out right now while I'm talking to you, and it doesn't like the look of my face when I've got my eyepiece on. So let me just do that, and I got to put my password on it in there, and it's of course 1234. If you're that stupid, then you shouldn't be watching these videos. So yeah, quick picture of the spring barrel, and there we go. And that just gives me an idea. I got my phone here, and it gives me an idea of the winding. And it's clockwise, which is atypical of this. And so to take this spring out, you have to walk it out. I'll show you how to do that. So a quick look at my mat right now. So I've got the crystal over here. It's just sitting there. I've got some parts here, hands and whatever. And the ring, the dust ring, the case is here. I got this main plate here for the center wheel, plus the mainspring barrel goes in there. Then I've got some of the parts here lined up, a couple of the wheels here. Keep it out of my way, and I got the main movement is over here and out of the way. I still have another plate to remove from that main movement. But right now I'm just going to strip this mainspring down and have a look inside. All right, I want to get the barrel. I want to get this mainspring out of the barrel, so I'll just take the cover plate off like that. I think I can just pop this out, no problem. So just pop this out like that. Usually if you wind it the opposite way, it'll come out of the hole. So if I grab it on the edge like this and then wind it the opposite way, it wants to pop out, right? So you can sometimes use a pin vise to do that. Or you just take a screwdriver and do this like that. So just move this upward like this, and then pop the center arbor out of the way. And that's the center arbor. That'll go into the cleaning machine for a nice deuce of cleaning, right? So that's that. I still have to look at the screw and the plate, but let me get the mainspring out first. Okay, so this is the trick on getting the mainspring out. You get a screwdriver. I usually do this barehanded, by the way, because I want to walk the spring out very carefully, right? So I'll do this, and then I'll grab that mainspring. Come on, come to daddy. Like this, and I'll get it out maybe one winding, but not much more. So I just push it out like that, one winding, and then I can, that thumbnail is disgusting but so useful. So do that, and then I start walking the mainspring out. And these things are pretty tight. They're intense. So, and in this case here, I likely will reuse the same mainspring. So I'm walking it out right now, and you just have to hold it tight on this side while you're walking the other side out. If you don't, this thing will fling on you, and it's going to become a problem. I look at the this mainspring and how it's attached to the watch, and it's got a T on it, so that's the T there. So I look at that, and it's a T on both sides, and then the hole for that T is, let me see where the hole is. It's right there. That's the hole. So when you put this back in, there's a hole on that side, and there's a groove on the cover right there, and that's where that has to go back in when I use my mainspring winder to wind that back into place. So I can clean that up and oil it a bit. I'll just put this aside. Now I want to look at this plate. This is the guilty plate with a guilty screw. So I'm going to take my needle and push that screw out, and I want to see what that screw looks like, because some terrible watchmaker put this screw in and said no one will notice, right? Because it's not screwing into anything. I can see that right now. And if I turn this, I want to put a little pressure on the back end of it while I turn it. I wonder if I can do that. I could probably do it better with a screwdriver, but I want to hold it like this. Let me get a screwdriver here. This is a fine screwdriver, and I want to push on the end here while I hold the plate and turn it. Can I do that? I may have to put it into a vise, which I have. I'll do it with two hands so you can see what I'm doing here, but it wants to slide. So then I'll just rotate this while I've got pressure, and it worked. There you go. Now if you look at that, see it's out there, but it screws into the plate. Now if you look at the different size screws, let me find a screw. Okay, this screw is a proper size screw for that plate, and this screw is a crappy one. Let me move those back a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So this watchmaker just threw a shitty screw in there so that it looked like it was together with a screw. There's supposed to be 3 screws to hold that plate down. This is the proper size screw. This screw didn't even get to the plate. So, and if I look at the watch, if I look at the watch movement itself, right, there's the watch movement. I grabbed this plate, and I recall when I took the plate off, let me line this up properly. It went on like this, right? If I grab this nice and easy and line it up, line it up properly right there, I think. So it went on like this, which means, and this was the crappy screw right there. I'll lift that up, and I see if there's no broken screw under there from somebody tightening it too much, which there might be. Let me look at it again. Where does that go? That goes straight down. I got my hat on. I'm going to bump the camera. I know it. Yeah, so there it goes right into there. So now, is there a broken screw there, yes or no? Because if there is a broken screw, that means the watchmaker, no, there's no broken screw. I'm looking right through the hole. If you look right through that hole, do you see any broken screw in there? No. So what the watchmaker did was take a shitty little screw that was the right head size and just put it in the hole so that the owner of the watch wouldn't know that the wrong screw was in there, which is what I call shitty work. Okay, there's no other way of describing that. It's shitty work. So the other thing I like to do when I'm doing watch work here is to take a photo of the keyless mechanism. So this is before I remove the keyless mechanism, and I know that these things work together as they pivot, right? So this pivots up as this pivots down, but I can just take this straight out, I think. Will this come straight out? Yes, it will. So I'll just move that aside. That's the keyless mechanism. This will strip down. This thing will strip down into a few pieces, but not that complex. And then I may or may not take this part out. I'm not sure. But the next thing I'm going to do is remove this plate here and get that out of the way. And hopefully there's no screwy watchmaking here as well, right? So there we go. So I took this one out. So on the surface, everything looks fine, and then when you get into the details of the watch, you can find problems. So when I do watch repair for people and they say, well, the watch is kind of running and it looks like it's okay, and and I get into the actual details of the watch, and I find that there's cracked jewels, there's wrong screws, so now we've got the K screw was wrong, and and just put my screwdriver in this little groove right here and then twist it, and that will raise that up a bit. I might Some cases I would realign the watch in the Myers 58 movement holder, but in this case it's just going to come straight up. You want to make sure you go straight up with everything, because you don't want to bend the pivots. So here's the wheel that holds the second hand, and I take this, twist it around this way so it's protected, and lay that down on the mat top up, so I don't have to worry about losing that. And this is the escapement. I'll want to take that out too, very carefully, like that, and move that out of the way. Again, I'll leave it like this on the mat and not go anywhere near this thing with my hands. And now I take off the pallet fork. That's this little fork here, and you got to watch again that it is removed straight up again, because you definitely don't want to ruin that. So, and again, watch the pivots don't get damaged. I notice all the crud, and it looks like there's mold on this watch here, if you can see that. So I'm going to just loosen this up here, nice and easy, and there we go. That's one screw, and again I'll keep the screws with the plates. So in this case it's called a bridge. So this is the pallet fork bridge. It's a bridge if you've got two screws going down on it. It's a cock if you've got one screw, is like the balance cock. So some people call it the balance bridge, well, because they don't want to say the C word, but in fact it's called the balance cock. So let's get real, folks. So I'll just put a screwdriver under here and see if I can jimmy that up a bit, which I can, and just take that out of the way. And I'll examine the jewel right there as well to have a look at that. Usually these jewels are not cracked. They're usually in mint condition, because the pallet fork doesn't really take a lot of heat. Even though it rolls back and forth, there's not a lot of pressure on the pallet fork. So the last thing I need to do is take this pallet fork and lift it straight up. So I do not put the pallet fork in the cleaning machine. I do these by hand. So there you go. That's a close-up of the pallet fork. There you go. See that? And you got to make sure that you're very careful with this. The pivots, the stone, and there's a guard pin usually on the top of this thing. You can see there's a little opening, and then at the very top of it, as you twist it sideways, you can see the guard pin sticking up. And that's for the pallet fork. I just get that out of the way. And now I look at I'm going to flip this around and have a look at the motion works, or the winding mechanisms, or whatever. And sometimes I leave all this stuff in place. This is my watch, so I'm likely just going to leave it in place and clean it, let it dry out completely, then oil it, right? Because there's not much need for me to remove this. It doesn't serve any purpose in this case for me to remove this. I just have to make sure it goes through the cleaning machine, and then I don't have to worry about these breaking. The big risk in doing vintage watch repair, you can agree or disagree with me, but these small springs here that are part of this Hamilton watch, they're old, and they have a probability of breaking. If you break a spring like this, good luck finding another one. Okay, so in a lot of cases, you're better off washing it completely and then never worrying about it again. So I just noticed another thing on this plate here, and I think I'll just do a little bit of a close-up here on this. So again, the last watchmaker was a bit of a doughhead. I can say that because if you look here, that's the jewel setting that's part of the balance. So the balance cock, I believe that's the jewel setting for the balance cock. So let me loosen that. Or the balance, if I just twist that around the other way, and I am correct. Yeah, so here's the banking pins right here. These two things are banking pins, and the pallet fork goes in here and it rides back and forth. Then the mouth of the pallet fork takes the impulse jewel that's part of the balance. Impulse jewel is attached to the roller table, and it pushes that back and forth, and that rocks the balance back and forth. That jewel there is the lower balance jewel, right? And that jewel is in a setting, and it is supposed to have two screws holding it down. And if you look there, you can see there's only one screw. So again, this half-assed jeweler took this thing apart, and he forgot to put the screw back for the jewel setting for the lower balance jewel. Like, what the heck are you up to, buddy? So I'll leave all this in place and clean it, and then I'll be able to take this jewel out here, because there's going to be a cap jewel and a jewel, and I'll take that out and clean it after I clean the watch. So that is a total mishap by the previous watchmaker, who kind of screwed that up, which is, this guy's really pissing me off, you know. So that's the plate. I think I can, let me grab this here and I'll remove this from the watch. That's the crown wheel or the ratchet wheel or whatever you want to call it. I think it's called a ratchet wheel. So I'll be washing that, and then I'll be washing this as well. This comes back like that, pretty sure, yeah. There we go. So I'll watch this wheel. That comes off like this. I kind of was out of camera there, so it goes in like this, and I can see where the angle is on this particular wheel, but so it's no big deal. I'll remember that. And I'll just move this out of the way, out of sight, out of mind. And I'm looking at all the parts right now, and I'm thinking, let me zoom out here. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Holy jeez, look at all that crap. So these guys that are professional watchmakers, they refuse to say any bad words while they're doing maintenance on the watches, but you know and I know when you're working on a watch and you can't remove a plate or something, you're dropping F-bombs sometimes, and you're trying to keep calm. So the trick is not to get it too excited where you're actually doing too many F-bombs. So, all right, there you go. I'm back to my other scene here. I did have a hat on while I was doing this, which I normally don't. So there's the watch in its multiple of pieces, or multitude of pieces. And the next thing I'm going to do is stack this watch in the watch cleaning baskets. So I think I'll show you how that's done, just because I'm a great guy. So don't touch that with your hands, even though it's going to go through the wash machines. So I'll also clean the case as well to make sure that it's clean. But here's the baskets. So I'm going to try to do this on camera while I'm chatting away here. And maybe move the camera up a bit. It's going to hit my legs or something, but so I've got a bunch of baskets here. So what I want to do is make sure that the lower basket is populated first. And the first thing I put in the lower basket is the plates. So I can take this main plate here and put that down there. And there's plenty of room for these plates in the basket. I'm going to turn it around. No, I think I'll leave it like that. So put the plate in there, and then there's a couple screws I could throw in there. It doesn't really matter because I think all the plate screws seem to be the same. There's that one screwed up plate screw that Buddy shouldn't have put in there. So I put the plates in there. I put the mainspring barrel in there, and I can put the barrel cap in there as well. Pardon me for showing me the top of my head. Live action, folks. Oh, and after I get that in, I've got enough real estate here and room in baskets to be able to put the mainspring in. So I put the mainspring in like that, lay that down there, and oh, I got one more plate to put in that I actually want to put in, and that's the full plate, full lower plate, full metal jacket. And I can put that in because this is deep enough just to rest it like that, put the mainspring in, and when I put that other basket on top, I want enough room on the edge of that basket that it goes all the way down like this, so it completely covers it so you don't lose any parts. So that's that basket. So I lower that in by putting my fingers on the bottom, grabbing it on the edges, and then working it to the bottom of this nice little basket carrier. And now I go to basket number 2. So in basket number 2, I'll move all this out of the way. I've got some really neat little containers here, so I will grab a bigger screwdriver because I want to open these up and put stuff in them. So I will take these screws here that you saw earlier, right? And I'll put those screws, even the little shitty screw that the watchmaker put in there. I'll be replacing this later, but I want to remember that there is a shitty screw. So I'll just throw that in there. So I can wash these screws, say that 3 times, in this basket. I could throw other things in the basket, like I think I can throw the center arbor in that basket without causing any damage. What I want to make sure is whatever I throw in that basket, when that's spinning around, that you don't have heavy objects hitting lighter objects and causing damage to them when you put it in the basket. So do the math on it. So some of these things can go in there without a problem, and some of them you don't want to put together, right? So I can take this object here and throw that in. It's not going to cause a problem at all. So that's enough for this basket. And I want to make sure that I don't have a displacement of weights. So just like an aircraft weight and balance, I want to make sure all baskets are kind of close in weight, even though it doesn't matter a lot, but you want a kind of a uniform spin that's going on there. So So the pallet fork I'm going to move out of the way and put it over here where I have the other the hands and some other things. So I can throw some of this stuff together. So this is part of the stem, part of the movement, right? So I throw those two objects in there. Now I know for a fact that I can throw, let me see, do I want to put anything more in there? I'm trying to think here. Could probably successfully put this in there, right? So where's the screw for it? It's over here. So I want to make sure I keep the screw together with the part. So do I put all that in there or just use more baskets? I think I'll use more baskets. So I'll put those two parts in there. Good enough. I got plenty of baskets. That goes there. Grab another basket. Sometimes when you're like, when I did that Valjour 7750 movement just recently, it's got like 200 parts on it. So it's a little more complex than this. So in this case here, I can put in the bridge for the pallet fork and put in the two screws that it uses. So I got that together in their own little home and everybody's happy, right? So I can put that down there, no problem. And so now I've got 3 baskets filled. So I'm very happy. I've got like happiness in the basket land. So that's 3 baskets, 1, 2, 3. The 4th basket here. Talk fast while I'm working. And this is going to be a long video, I think. So in this 4th basket, I will throw in the crown wheel here. Crown wheel? I think it's called a crown wheel. Anyway, crown wheel and its big screw, so I know that they're there. And I got room actually for the whatchamacallem jobby doohickey. I'll leave these out because I don't want them to be touching that or potential of damage. But let me think, do I put that screw and plate in there too, or do I put them in the other one? Let me think. I want to have the screw in somewhere where I know it belongs to that plate, right? So let me look in this basket here. What do I have here? Yeah, that's good. So I can take this basket here, which doesn't have any screws, and throw that screw, and this is the upper plate of this, and throw that in there, and I think we're good throwing the upper balance ratchet wheel in there. So there we go. So I got the crown wheel and the ratchet wheel, and the math continues. So now that's good there, that's good there. And so I'll take all these baskets and I'll put them back into this part of the cleaning machine baskets, and that's 2. Now I got 2 done. I'll lower that like this, and it fits snugly over the top of the lower basket like that. Now I got the 3rd basket. I got more baskets than I probably need. There's the 3rd basket, so I want to make sure the wheels are put in there independently. So I'm going to put my center wheel in there, and because it weighs the most, I put it towards the center more than anything, right? So that goes there, and then this wheel here can go next to it, and this is the wheel where the second hand is, and then the intermediate wheel can go into a separate basket here, and then this escapement wheel can go into a separate basket here, and the little pivot is sort of falling through the hole there. And then I've got the minute wheel, and I'll throw the hour wheel in there. So that's kind of what I got. That's what it looks like. I've never had a problem with that. There's not a lot of stress. So in this case here, I grab the top of it like this and just lower it like that. So now that's being lowered down on top of the other basket. And then this top seal of the basket, so this part here is kind of rough and this part here is kind of smooth. So I'll take the smooth part and face it downward so I get a better seal on the top of this with everything, right? And after I've put it all in, I just look at it sideways like this just to make sure that the baskets are completely sealed on top of each other, because they're going to prevent the parts from coming out, right? So which is a good thing to do. The face, as I said earlier, I'll clean that face once I reassemble the watch, and I know that it has some there's a plate underneath it so that this face doesn't bend. There's actually a secure plate underneath, so I can put a little tiny bit of pressure on it. I'll use a piece of Rodico just to clean the face off. I've got to go find 3 screws now, right? 1 screw for that the lower balance jewel setting, 1 screw for the secondary plate, and then 1 screw for the to actually hold the movement in. So a case screw that I've got to find, because the last watchmaker screwed all that up. Pardon the pun. So the last thing I'll do is I will hand wash the case with, I'll be using lighter fluid, and hand wash it with lighter fluid and a brush. And then I will, I don't need to polish this case. I might, if I get keen, I may take it down to the buffing machine and see if I can give it a nice buff, right, to see if I can make it look really good. I do want to replace this bail because I think it's a bullshit bail. So this bail here, that bail was just somebody took a piece of wire and bent it into the right shape and then put it on, because it's corroding right over here. So that's a piece of copper wire, brass, probably brass wire. And they just said, I know, nobody will notice. I'll just put that in. And same guy that did the screws. But what I do like about this watch is those crazy, the other side of the decoration that they had on the bezel and the upper bezel, and then the lower part here. This decoration here. The other thing I might try on this watch, because I'm not too bad at it, is removing these dents. So I have a tool I use to remove dents on pocket watches. I'm just going to grab that tool really close or really quickly and show you what it looks like, so you get more enjoyment out of this video. So this is the tool I use to remove dents on pocket watches, and it's got a bunch of different fasteners or fixers or something, attachments, I'll say. So these attachments here are great for working around or working the dent on the outside. I find that if the dents are small, you can use this attachment here, which will help move that dent out of the way. Or this one here is actually a good one because it's not super big as well. And then you can use these flattening ones here to flatten it after. But I find these things are round, right? So they don't like that. But if you have a little tiny dent like that one right there, you can see that dent popping up right there. That dent. This particular tool right here would be a good one to get underneath here, and you work that dent back and forth here until you've actually removed it. You can't see it anymore. So what you're doing is you're taking this and you're screwing it into the handle here like a klutz. Screwing it into the handle like that, and then you screw it all in and make sure it's nice and tight. And then I have a wooden block I use. I won't grab it right now, but I've also just used this desk here. So I'll take this and I'll look for the reflections, right? So, and I'll go down here and I'll work this by tapping it with a hammer and just continuing to tap it and then looking at what I've done and then tapping it, looking at what I've done. So I've done a few pocket watches. Sometimes you can make the dent go the other way even more, and then work it from this side to smoothen it out. So that's another technique that I've used. It's just practice to do that, to remove a dent. So because this is my pocket watch, it's the perfect opportunity to use these tools to see if I can remove the dent. And I can do that perhaps while I'm washing the watch in my wash machine. I use a Pearl wash machine that I got from India. It's actually really good, and it costs around $750 right now, I think, and it runs off 240 volts, but it will run off 110. And they sort of stuck a sticker on the 240. They just stuck a 110 sticker on the top of the 240. I said, "Oh yeah." They didn't know I'm an electrical engineer. I kind of know what that means. The only problem I had with it, and it's not the motor and the coils and it running, is that there's a rheostat on that, and it's like a small dial, and it's a winding coil around a rheostat, and you adjust the speed of the motor for that, right? So it is so touchy. So you got to go kind of halfway to even get the motor to start, and then when you're playing with it, so the motor doesn't spin really fast. So you got to play with it way too much, and that is because it doesn't have much of a window, because that rheostat was made for 240 and not 120 or 110, right? So I've been looking for another rheostat of some sort I could fit in there. I can't find one. I've looked on the interweb, and there's nothing there so far. So I'll see what I can do. Get this out of the way. How rude are you? So, so I'll see what I can do to fix it. So right now, now you're done. I've got the strip down of the watch. I'm going to a lot of chatting going on. I know I talk a lot. I apologize, but I'm going to produce this video now. So again, thanks for watching my channel. I'll be getting into more watch work as I go forward. I did do some crazy videos recently, and people said, why are you making those videos? They're not watch work. Well, I do simulation as well. Flight simulation, I really love it. And I put a video of my granddaughter telling a story she made up just recently. So anyway, got to keep the kids happy. So there you go. I'm JD. Thanks for watching this video if you got to the end. And I hope maybe I said a few things that you've learnt while you're watching the video. And I'll see you in the next video.